Watching Kyle's unboxing videos again?
Yeah, he always finds the coolest... No way! A robot dog? Gotta ask where he got it.
Or use your Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Just draw a circle around the dog on your screen, and it shows you where to buy it right in the app.
Whoa, I just learned a new trick. And that for once, I beat Kyle to the next big thing.
Circle it, find it with the new Galaxy S24 Ultra and circle the search with Google. Get yours now at Samsung.com. Internet connection required. Results may vary based on visuals.
Duke fans, welcome to episode 490 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. We're still the Duke Basketball Report, right? We haven't changed the name officially, have we?
we have not yet. We're still here.
Yeah, not quite. We're coming up and making a decision. We love all the emails we've gotten from all of you with suggestions of a new name for this podcast, as we're required to change it. We're not changing it because we love DBR, but those are the rules. So we're going to be following those rules. We'll be discussing that more extensively as we move forward on this this recap of the Duke Syracuse game. I am Jason Evans. I'll be hosting this week. I'm joined by Donald Wine. Sam Klein couldn't make it, so it's just me and Donald flying, not solo but duo, as opposed to a menage a pod.
I don't know where you're going with this.
Where am I going with that? How did that happen? Woo! Hello.
This is what happens when Sam's not here. We
need Sam hosting. In any event, we're going to talk about Duke's 77-55 victory, a game, by the way, that vaulted the Blue Devils from number 42 to number 35 in Ken Pomeroy's rankings. There's nothing quite like taking on a top 100 opponent and beating them by 20 to really help your efficiency metrics. That's always a good sign. This was also, I'm just going to get this out of the way at the top, Duke's 700th ACC regular season win. Look, I don't know who has the record for the most ACC regular season wins. Probably North Carolina, but I wouldn't be surprised. My bet is that Duke's 700th puts us in second place, and it's an impressive round number. Anytime you hit those round numbers, they're fun. And I also wanted to note very quickly, Donald, the crowd, 31,063 people at the JMA Wireless Dome. Good God, I can't believe that. Why'd they?
The Carrier Dome. It's the Carrier Dome.
It will always forever be the Carrier Dome. The crowd of 31,063 is the largest on-campus crowd for a college basketball game this season in all of college basketball. I don't know if that's a credit to Duke or a credit to Syracuse. Probably a credit to both of them. Syracuse fans for showing up, Duke for getting the fans something they got hyped and excited about so they could be there. There were Syracuse legends in attendance. DeMar Hamlin was there. Ryan Young's family was there. There was a lot of stuff that they could show in the crowds because the action on the court was the Blue Devils in a absolute blowout. Donald, we begin with our headlines. I know I looked through every single one of the ones that was sent to us by the listeners. Some great stuff. Give me the ones that you liked best, though.
Yeah. So again, so many submissions after the final whistle. Really appreciate everybody sending those in. I had a couple personal favorites of mine. One from our favorite that came in, and he writes, Duke gets infusion of vitamin 3 to put the squeeze on the orange. And I thought that was perfect. It described everything that happened last night. And then finally, Kenneth Heaps wrote simply, let freedom ring. And, you know, as someone from DC, freedom is always present in my life.
I like that. Both of those were two of the, I had five that I pulled out that I really liked. Both of those made my cut as well.
Mm-hmm.
The other ones I loved, Paul Downing. Get ready for the D's, Donald. Paul Downing said, Duke's dynamic D and devilish threes dominate the dome in important win. Paul, love it. Lots of D's in a row there. And
alliteration.
Yeah,
love it.
And I thought when we get to talking about the good, I'm going to talk about the defense for a while, my friend.
Yeah.
David Koiza, I hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. David said, zoned out. Orange crushed by Devils 3 and D. I liked David, finding a way to get that Syracuse zone I mentioned there. And then the last one, Wilco. He's a great emailer. He's a great poster of the Duke Basketball Report forums. Wilco said, and this is a good one. It's better, I think, when you read it than it is when you hear it, but I'll try and do it any justice. He said, Syracuse performance of La Boheme, and he spelled it Boeheim, La Boheme, falls flat. as Duke's arias from three steal the show. Hey, and then he noted, he goes, it's long, but it's something other than juice. He is correct. We got a lot of juice, orange crush kind of headlines. We got a lot of those. So I give Wilco credit for finding something other than orange juice to give us a headline. And I loved La Boheme. That was very well done, Wilco. Thank you, sir.
Jason, I mean, I get it, right? We're recording this. It's like 8:30 in the morning on the East Coast. I'm here in Nashville at 7:30 in the morning. Orange juice sounds pretty good right about now. So I'm glad that we squeezed it last night.
Absolutely. Let's get to the good. Let's get to the recap. Donald, I will let you go ahead and start. Dude, I'm going to lead you, though. You got to talk about the 3-pointers, right?
I'm talking about all the shooting, right? Like, look, shooting has been our Achilles heel all season. We've had some games where we've shown some promise, but we haven't quite fully pulled together. And even in this game, we started out kind of slow, right? We didn't shoot, lights out from the beginning, but we warmed up into it. And as we got used to Syracuse's patented, matchup zone, we found the spots and we were hitting them. We shot 54.5% from the floor, 50% from three. We didn't even get to the free throw line that much, but we went to the line 4 times. We made all 4 of our free throws. Look, we have had games where we have shot 30% from the floor. We've shot 10% from three. So the fact that we were shooting over 50% in all of these categories leads me to believe that, we hopefully we turn a corner, right? We're talking about a Saturday, Monday kind of turnaround. So we need to sustain that. But, looking at this from a one game perspective, it's great to have a great shooting night against Syracuse, because Syracuse literally tells you, hey, if you're going to win, you're going to need to shoot the ball. You're not going to be able to drive to the rim and make a lot of baskets. But we were even doing that, Jason. There was a lot of times where we got out of a couple of scoring droughts that we did have by going to the basket or kicking out and finding someone for an open 3-pointer. And a lot of them came at really clutch times, back-breaking moments. Anytime Syracuse in the second half tried to kind of mount a mini comeback, it was a 3-pointer that just stopped them cold and sent people scurrying for the exits early.
Yeah, and I'll shout out a couple of guys. Look, you have to talk about Dariq Whitehead.
Mm-hmm.
He's now 13 for his last 19 3-pointers. That's 68.4%. I'm just going to go ahead and say that's not sustainable. I don't care. You could be Steph Curry. 68% on threes is not sustainable, but boy, it sure is enjoyable. I also wanted to mention Jacob Grandison only hit 1 3-pointer, but it was a really big three. The game was tied at 19. It was late in the shot clock, and Grandison knocked down a 3-pointer, and it launched Duke on what would be a 24-4. It was a 21-2 or a 24-4 run. Either way, regardless, it was the run that basically turned this into a relaxing evening. I enjoy relaxing evenings while watching Duke basketball. And we had 4 different guys hit multiple threes. That's a good way of saying that this was a really, really impressive night for the Blue Devils from long distance. Hey, I want to move to a different area. I want to move to the turnovers. And look, there's a piece of this that we could talk about in the good and a piece that we could talk about in the bad. We had 10 turnovers in the first half, but we had only 4 in the second half. And a couple of those came late in the game, like during mop-up time. Duke really, for a team that has struggled so much at holding on to the ball, and frankly struggled throughout like the first 10 minutes or so, first 12 minutes or so of this game, they suddenly cleaned it up really, really nicely. There was one point, by the way, in the second half, they showed on the screen that Duke had 0 second half turnovers. And literally it was like at the 8-minute mark or something like that. So like for the first 12 minutes of the second half, we had 0 turnovers. And literally within 10 seconds of them putting the graphic on the screen, we committed a turnover. I was like, that is the craziest stat jinx. That literally happened within 10 seconds.
The stat jinx is real. I mean, I think there was something earlier this season where one of our players was like, oh, he hasn't missed a free throw all year. And there's just like, bam, bam, missed 2 in a row. You're like, right. Thanks, stat jinx.
Yeah, exactly. But hand in hand with those turnovers is the rest of the ball handling. We assisted on 22 out of 30 baskets. That's a 73% assist rate. That's a big number. 73% is a big number for an assist rate. And I want to be clear, part of this is Duke. Part of this is the Blue Devils having a good game, arguably, I think, their best game of the season. Part of it is also Syracuse. I said in the preview, that Syracuse zone, just the nature of the way you beat the zone, the nature of the way you score against it, it tends to be off of passing. I'm just glad that Duke took advantage of that and that we did a really nice job of moving the ball around. And after a shaky first 12 minutes or so, we did a really nice job of hanging onto the ball.
Yeah, I think, going back to Whitehead for a second, Whitehead, we have kind of painted as a guy that, we like that he's shooting threes. It's cool, but we want him driving to the lane. We want him to do the things that, made him one of the number one, number two players in the country. And he keeps shooting threes and he keeps making them. And I'm here to tell you, keep shooting the threes, man. Keep making them. I don't care.
It's allowed. You're allowed.
I don't care if you want to do that. That's fine. And while we may love to see him drive the lane and kind of do the athletic things that he's brilliant at, he's really good at shooting threes. And right now that's something that we've needed over the last couple of games. He's been one of the few guys to provide that consistently over the last 5 games. So if he's going to continue to shoot the ball and make it, especially those open threes, go ahead and do that, because the Syracuse offense allowed for a lot of open looks. And I think the great thing, Jason, is that we did make them. We've had games where we've had a lot of open shots and we missed them. And that leads to these unpleasant games that we like to that we've ended up watching. The reason why this was relaxing in the second half is because, like you mentioned, we took care of the basketball, we made all our shots, and anytime Syracuse came down, it felt like it was one, they'd miss it, and then we're going the other way. So it made for, you're sitting there, and everyone who was texting me last night about the game was just like, this is nice. And it felt good for Duke fans for once this year to have a game where we all could collectively just sigh and just relax and kick our feet up and watch our team play very, very well.
Yeah, you mentioned the fact that Syracuse was one and done on the offensive end. The Duke rebounding, I thought, was outstanding. We out rebounded them 38-25. I mean, that's just a big domination of the boards, and that included getting 10 offensive rebounds on Duke's 25 missed shots for a 40% offensive rebounding rate. Again, in the preview, I mentioned that Syracuse is a terrible defensive rebounding team, that the zone doesn't do a good job of putting butts on bodies to block guys out, and Duke repeatedly got offensive rebounds. Dariq Lively, I thought, was outstanding at grabbing offensive rebounds and then relocating it to shooters on the perimeter. He did that again and again, and Lively ends up this game with 3 assists. And talking about these rebounds allows me to sort of transition to talking about Dariq Lively. I thought his defense in this game was truly outstanding. His hedge and look, I'm going to talk about the blocks in a second, but I want to talk about his hedge and recover on screens. Was especially on Joe Girard and Judah Mintz, was absolutely fabulous. His ability to step out, make sure that because a guy like Joe Girard, if you don't hedge properly, he's going to end up coming off a screen and taking a 3. That is that guy's game. And Syracuse does it really, really well. And Joe Girard is a super experienced player at that. I thought Lively was brilliant about his ability to hedge and then recover back on to Jesse Edwards. We can't talk enough. I want to be clear. Jesse Edwards is one of the best big men in the ACC. He's in the running for, one of the all ACC teams. He is a huge part of their offense. He's a huge part of their rebounding. He is a huge shot blocker. Dariq Lively dominated him. Lively had more points. He had more rebounds. Lively had 8 rebounds. He had more rebounds than Jesse Edwards. He had more blocks than Jesse Edwards. By the way, they said Lively had 3 block shots. I counted 5, at least 5. I don't know how the official score had 3. I'm not sure what game he was watching, but Dariq Lively had more than 3 block shots. But regardless, more than Jesse Edwards. He had more assists than Jesse. He had 3 assists, more assists than Jesse Edwards. Dariq Lively, I thought, was outstanding, and it was part of Duke playing a really impressive defensive effort. This Syracuse team averages close to 75 points per game. We held them 20 points under their season scoring average, which is something we do to everybody. Like, this is the 23rd time out of 27 games where we've held a team below their season scoring
That
average.
has been the most consistent stat that we've had all year, is that no matter what, whether we're winning or losing, we're keeping teams down underneath their scoring average.
Yeah, exactly. And I just thought that Dariq Lively, all the bigs, but I thought Dariq Lively especially was special on defense in this game.
Yeah, look, the rebounding was particularly incredible because they exploited something that I think a lot of people don't realize about the zone defense, right? And it happens when we play zone, which is why we really don't play it that often, is because when you're playing man-to-man, you're guarding someone, JC, you're right in their face. So when a shot goes up, all you got to do is kind of turn around and you know where your man is, and you can box them out pretty easily. In a zone, you have to find someone. And so the technique is you find somebody, run to them, then do what I just told you is turn around and kind of block them out, then look for the basketball. It does not work when your bigs are athletic. Derek Lively was way too athletic last night. Kyle Filipowski was way too athletic last night. Guys like Dariq Whitehead and Mark Mitchell, they're going to fly in all the time. And even Ryan Young is crafty enough to know where his spacing is and know where his closest opponent is and figure out where the ball is going and get to that spot first. And so Syracuse had a terrible time trying to find our guys to block them out on, defensive possessions because we were just so athletic at going to the rim and getting the ball, even if it missed. That's why we had 10 offensive rebounds to their 15 defensive rebounds. So Jason, we're at 40% on the year. We basically shot our average because we're so athletic. We can get to the ball and get to a spot before they even have a chance to turn around and find us. And I think that's a really big deal because those points, led to a lot of possessions where Syracuse just felt tired. And even if they got out of it without us making any points, they went down to the other end and they looked lethargic as a result. They were just tired from that 40-second possession that they just had to undergo on defense. And we were able to take advantage of that over time as well. Like I said, we didn't start shooting the ball well, but over time we were able to wear them down. And then once we started hitting our threes, that's just that was it. Syracuse wasn't coming back from that.
I want to shout out one guy in particular, Mark Mitchell. Maybe his best game of the season. Certainly the first half was his best half of the season. Really active on defense. His hands were moving. His legs were moving. I thought he had, he had a ton of deflections, got balls that he got his hands on that sometimes they end up as steals. Sometimes they just end up as, sort of distracting the play. But I thought Mark Mitchell was great on defense in this game. He made really good decisions when he got the ball inside the zone. Like I didn't expect Duke to try to find Mark Mitchell at the free throw line in the middle of that zone. That was not something that I thought was going to be part of the Duke game plan. I sort of mentioned that I thought, Kyle Filipowski was the guy who got it there the most, and I thought he was absolutely excellent at that. I know you want to talk about that. I thought that Ryan Young and Jacob Granderson were also guys that we try and get into the middle of that zone a little bit. But especially in the first half, we were working the ball to Mark Mitchell there a lot. Now, I don't know if part of that was, trying to maybe distract or surprise Syracuse. I'm sure Syracuse didn't think that was going to be Duke's game plan. But I also thought Mitchell made really good decisions that he was in there. And it showed me that that some confidence that Duke had in Mark Mitchell's decision-making. He ends the game with 5 assists, Mark Mitchell. 5 assists from Mark Mitchell? Are you kidding me? He also had 8 points. He had 2 steals. And like I said, just that great defense. I've been bagging on this kid a lot lately, questioning whether or not he should be a starter. And Mark Mitchell, sort of for the second game in a row said, "Hey, Jason, don't you put me on the bench yet. I don't belong there yet." And he's right. I love it.
The ultimate stat jinx is Jason Evans.
This is true. Yes.
But no, you mentioned Flip and Jason. I think 14 and 12. First of all, Jeremy Roach, 17 points. We really haven't talked about him. He shot 60% from the floor. I think he had 3 threes, but I think we saw a piece of this game plan on Tuesday. I mentioned on Tuesday, we had a lot of times where we had guys that would get to the free throw line and then that 15-foot area, they were just popping shots from there. And I mentioned that against the matchup zone, that is a huge hole that is always exploited. The question is a lot of people don't take that mid-range jumper and make it all the time. That's what we were doing. If we weren't hitting threes, we were getting to that free throw line where we had a position to either shoot, go to the hole, or pass it to someone in the corner for a 3. And it felt like, in the second half, especially, Jason, you mentioned the turnovers in the first half. I thought that they made the right decision every single time. And it led to the fact where it felt like every single time down the floor, we got points out of it. We didn't necessarily make every shot, but we got points almost every single time down the floor. And when you're doing that against a team, that team's never going to come back. That is just ultimate game planning and execution. I know we were better than Syracuse last night. I know we were better than Syracuse on paper, but we've had a lot of teams that we were better than we didn't execute against. In this game, our game plan was executed, I thought, very, very successfully, very well by everybody involved. And it was led by Flip going to the boards. It was led by Derek Lively in his defense, Mark Mitchell, you mentioned, and Jeremy Roach I thought he might have been the most skittish of the guys on the floor last night on offense. But it seemed like he was making everything that he shot, which you expect from your floor captain.
All right. So as we wrap up the good, just a couple other super quick notes I wanted to mention. The first one is this Duke team is now 11-1 in games where we have our full complement, our full roster, where everyone is healthy for the entire game. Duke is 11-1 in those games. So maybe the folks who are writing the Duke obit may have jumped the gun a little bit on that, because this is a team that has shown it is really capable of putting together some really impressive performances. And then the other thing I wanted to mention was with every family member I think that he has in attendance, I thought Ryan Young, he didn't have the big statistical game, but I loved his effort at all times. And every moment Ryan Young was on the floor, I felt like I saw him playing hard. Donald, you love to talk about effort and intensity. There was a moment late in the game. It was a 20 plus point game. It was clear Duke was going to win the contest. And there was like a rebound that Ryan Young got a hand on and sort of knocked it away from a Syracuse guy a little bit. And dude dove on the floor. Like he was fighting for his last meal. Scrap of, morsel of the ball was on the ground there, and he had to have it. And and
he ain't tiny.
No. Yeah. I love his effort. I love his smarts. And I just wanted to shout that out, in a game where he's not going to get much other attention, except for the fact, Donald, he had a legit block shot, like a hack job. Ryan Young, that was one of his highlights of the year. So I just wanted to shout him out, because I really thought dude deserved it. And he had a ton of family in attendance who seemed to be enjoying his performance.
Energy breeds a lot of what he does, Jason, right? You're getting offensive rebounds, those defensive efforts, and even, like you said, hustling down the floor. He doesn't think he's not the fastest guy on the floor, but he's going to beat people down the floor. We've seen that even in games where the rest of the team looked like they didn't get off the bus. But I just enjoy the fact that even if he's not going to put up something statistically, we're going to see that effort from him. Because all of that breeds other people to be successful, and that's what it did last night.
Exactly. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, it wasn't all good. There's a little bit of bad we have to talk about, and we have to pick our player of the week. Not an easy choice this week. The answer, though, after this break. All right, we're back from the break. Just me and Donald, missing Sam. Sam, where are you?
Where is he?
Yeah. I know you and Sam are going to be doing a look ahead, a bites on Duke coming up against Louisville. First game in a stretch of 3 home games that are really, really big for Duke to first of all, lock up an NCAA bid, lock up, at least a single bye. I think the double bye is just out of reach for us in the ACC, especially because the team that looks like it's coming back, the team that could maybe be caught, is Clemson, and we don't have Clemson has the tiebreaker on us because that silly, stupid game that I attended.
Well, looking ahead, Louisville just beat Clemson last night, so we'll talk about it in the bites, but that's one of those things where I thought that preview was going to be easy, and Louisville made it hard for us. But let's focus on what we need to improve from this game to carry on to Monday.
Amen. And so let's take it over to the bad, because there are things that Duke needs to improve upon. I'll let you get started. Give me what you got bad first.
Look, it's turnovers, right? It's been a big thing all year. And like you said, we had 10 in the first half, and it kept Syracuse in the game and even ahead for the first, 8 to 12 minutes of this ball game. And like you said, when the shooting happened, we took them out of it, but the turnovers kept them in it, and it gave them, again, extra opportunities for them to stay in it and give that huge crowd a reason to believe that they were going to win the ball game. And in times we've had that coupled with bad shooting, and that leads to us having some of these terrible losses that we've had. But I think the turnovers it's hard to say once again, guys, we need to clean it up. But guys, we need to clean it up, because as we're approaching, every single one of these games matters down the stretch, no matter who we're playing. And we cannot keep people in ball games by giving them the ball every 3 possessions, which is what it felt like we were doing in the first half. Now we need to start taking care of the ball more than ever. We need to take that second half and really lock that in and say, hey, if we take care of the basketball, look what we can do. Look how many points we can score. Look how easily we can take a team out of their game and make them the desperate team as opposed to us kind of scrambling at the end of games.
Well, and especially because Syracuse is not a team that ordinarily gets a lot of turnovers.
Right.
And so many of those first half turnovers were live ball turnovers, just silly stuff that allowed Judah Mintz to put on a dunk show. That dude must have had at least 3 runouts where we, essentially handed him the ball, and suddenly he's going, he's putting on his own, NBA slam dunk contest all by himself. It was ridiculous, and it led to this. I mean, in a game that Duke wins by 20 points, Syracuse outscored us 15-6 on points off turnover. That's bad. Now, it's worth noting all 15 of those points came in the first half. Syracuse 0 points off turnover in the second half. So, like you said, we cleaned it up, but yeah, the turnovers were nasty. The big thing I wanted to mention in the bad, Donald, the bench is shortening. Since he got whacked in the nose, Jalen Blakes barely plays for this team anymore. He and Jaden Schutt only came in for mop-up, final 2.5 minutes of mop-up minutes. By the way, Jaden Schutt buried a 3. I guess I was a little bit, I think because Duke was hitting their threes, we didn't need to use them. I was a little surprised that maybe John Shire would try and give Jaden Schutt some minutes earlier in this contest, because his ability to knock it down could have been very valuable against the Syracuse zone. But, like I said, the bench is definitely in the shortening process. Jacob Grandison, I thought, wasn't nearly as impactful as I expected him to be in this game. He hit, I mentioned the one big 3-pointer he hit, but just 1 of 5 from the field. He played just 10 minutes. He had a pair of turnovers. Wasn't a good game from Grandison. And as I mentioned earlier, even though he played really hard, Ryan Young only played 10 minutes. Now, it's worth noting that that wasn't because of his poor play. It was because Dariq Lively was just outrageous on defense, and taking Lively out at all just seemed like a mistake. Like, don't take Lively out at all in this game. But Duke has a short turnaround. And the reason I was paying attention to the bench minutes in this game is because we're doing a Saturday, Monday, even if it's at home, even if it's Louisville, you got to worry about, our guys going to be exhausted. And Jeremy Roach plays like 34 minutes. Kyle Filipowski was over 30 minutes. Tyrese Proctor was close to 30 minutes. So was Dariq Lively. I absolutely think these guys will recover and they'll be fine against Louisville, but it was just something I was looking at, and I was kind of it was a 20-point game throughout most of the second half. I was like, we're going to get a little more bench run here. And it didn't really work out. And I feel like the bench is shortening.
There's 2 trains of thought when you're talking about a blowout late, right? You either, and especially with a short turnaround, the 2 trains of thought are, hey, we just, let our foot off the gas, take everybody out, give everybody some playing time, and kind of spread the minutes out. Or it's, hey, I'm just going to ride these guys. And then in the second game, these guys that didn't get a lot of playing time are going to get more playing time to counteract. And basically over the course of 2 games, it kind of averages out. I think the fact that we have been so terrible in late game situations and letting teams catch up was the reason for last night, our bench being short until the very end.
That's a great point.
If you think about it, we've had too many games where we've won, but we were up 15, 16 points, and then they came back. And at the end of the games, because we let our foot off the gas. I think last night, John Shire was like, no, we're just going to keep these guys in, like, let this ride this 20-point win all the way to the end, and then we can bring in guys. But he did. I mean, he emptied the bench, right? Like we saw Max Johns last night. We don't see him that much. So people got into the game that normally didn't. But I think the I guess the PTSD, so to speak, of prior games, letting our teams get back into the game very late and having to practice these late game situations. He didn't want any part of that, especially with Louisville coming on Monday. He wanted to make this as easy as possible, and to do that, he wrote his starters to the end.
Yeah. Hey, the only other thing I had in the bad was the free throw line. You mentioned this earlier. Duke only shot 4 free throws. Yeah, we made them all, but 4 free throws is a pretty low number. Now, it's worth noting, free throws are something that are almost entirely dependent on the other team. If they don't foul you, if they don't want to stop you, then oh well. So I think that was a little bit of what played into this. But it is worth noting that we gave up 14 free throws to Syracuse. Not a huge number, but somewhat troubling for a Syracuse team that they aren't a team that gets to the free throw line a ton. And I did want to mention Joe Girard got fouled shooting threes twice. I really don't like that. Don't foul a 3-point shooter. Tyrese Proctor, please don't foul the 3-point shooter.
There's no it's one of those I wouldn't say it's completely inexcusable, but it's close. Like it's the most difficult shot that the person's shooting. There's no reason to really get out in front of it and help them by going to the line. Especially we've seen this in a couple games this year. The guy makes it, and all of a sudden a terrible three becomes a 4-point play because you kind of almost fouled the ball into the net. So yeah, let's not do that anymore. I don't like those.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no. So that's it for our bad. Not much. There's just not much there.
It's great.
20-point beatdown on the road. Hey, So let's move on to player of the week. I'm interested, Donald.
Wait, Jason.
Favorite play. I forgot.
Play.
We had to do favorite play first. Yes, tons of nominees, by the way, for favorite play. In my book, I had like 3 or 4 different possibilities. So go ahead, Donald. I'll see if you take one of mine.
Yeah. So actually, the same one that I had was one that a listener wrote in on. Kenneth Hazen. Dariq Lively, he blocks a shot to Tyrese Proctor and basically blocks it so hard that Tyrese Proctor goes down and shoots a 3. And Kenneth's like, shouldn't that be an assist for Dariq Lively? Because it was that, ridiculous of a block that it literally led the break for Tyrese Proctor to hit that 3. And I think it was one of those plays that Duke men's basketball on their Twitter account likes to, zero in on, and they kind of slowed it down. And you can kind of see Tyrese Proctor look behind him, see that everyone's behind him, and just kind of take the 3. And as he did it, he starts to celebrate because he knows it's like in rhythm. That was like the favorite play because again, it was a combination of everything we did great. Off defense, blocking, leading to an offensive 3-pointer, and it goes in and gives us that confidence going again.
Yeah, that was my favorite play as well, and I love the way Kenneth pointed out that Lively should have gotten an assist on that block. Are you allowed to get a block and an assist at the same time?
I don't know. We should probably write in about that.
Yeah, I don't know that the rules work that way, but it sure felt like it. And by the way, that it was at a huge moment in the game. Duke was leading by 5 points. It was sort of midway, 2/3 of the way through the first half, and that was a 3 that stretched it out to 8. And sort of that was the moment to me that I was like, okay, this Duke team's about to really stretch this out and really make it a difficult night for Syracuse. I also wanted to shout out 2 other plays. I already mentioned the Ryan Young clean block that I thought, it was just Ryan Young's not the most athletic player down there. And for him to get a block like that was just awesome. And then the last one was Mark Mitchell threw a lob in the lane to Dariq Lively in the first half that Lively yammed. That was like, I heard the announcers go, whoa. Like
they almost had to stop the game.
Yeah. Everyone in the stadium was like, did that just happen? Wow. I mean, Dariq Lively, I think he only scored 6 points in this game. I need to look at the box score again. All 6 of them, all 3 baskets were like, made you look ugly. Cause you were like, oh my God, Dariq Lively.
I think Dariq Lively has, like, I think he probably has, let's say 15 or 16 points over the last week and a half, and all of them have been vicious dunks. Like exactly. All of them.
Right. Dariq Lively's ratio of highlights to points scored is outrageous.
Basically, it's like 98%.
Every time he scores, it's a highlight. Yeah, he's a lot of fun to watch. That's for sure. All right. So time, like I teased earlier, so to speak, time to get to our player of the week. And you know what, Donald? I'm going to take host privilege. I'm going to go first. I think it's a little bit of a surprise. I think there are a lot of different possibilities you could have this week. I mean, Dariq Whitehead hit 7 of 10 3-pointers on the week. But the guy I went with is Mark Mitchell. And it may seem kind of surprising, but as I said earlier, I was bagging on the guy. I mentioned he hadn't hit a single 3-point, or he hit 1 3-pointer this calendar year. He hit 2 against Notre Dame, including that incredibly important one in the final seconds to seal the victory, and then had that phenomenal first half against Syracuse. Like I said, I considered Whitehead. I considered Dariq Lively, who had a great week in the post. Kyle Filipowski this week had 36 points and 18 rebounds. I looked at all these things and I went, nope, I'm giving it to Mark Mitchell. What do you think, Donald?
I love that pick. Considering the fact of the week that he had right against Notre Dame, he hits the game clinching 3-pointer, and just like, all of that, all these things that he's been working on, we're starting to kind of see some of that in practice on the basketball floor. I'm going to give it, however, to Kyle Filipowski. I think the reason why is he had the worst week of his career last week, like in the week before, and he's responded by having An
I love
incredible week, a double-double almost in against Notre Dame. He has a double-double against Syracuse. So, I mean, every single time that we've seen this kid literally punched in the throat, he has responded in kind, and he responded with a good week. So that's what I'm giving it to. But I think you mentioned him. You mentioned Mark Mitchell, Derek Lively. I think Jeremy Roach even had a great week. Jacob Grandison had a great week. There's a lot of guys who, for their reasons, should be player of the week. So I wanted to quickly shout them all out, but I'm giving mine to Kyle Filipowski.
By the way, you know who else had a great week? John Shire and the coaching staff.
John Shire and the coaching staff. Hats off to him.
Yeah, I thought we seemed incredibly prepared against Syracuse. I thought, they handled a difficult situation against Notre Dame with Coach K returning and Mike Bray in his final appearance at Notre Dame, coming to Duke. There's a lot that John Shire needs to work on. He is not a fully formed, outstanding head coach yet, but you're just seeing, sort of the onion peeling back the various layers and the such. You know what else has layers? Parfait. Sorry, I was doing the onion thing, and I was like, I can't help. I'm hearing Eddie Murphy as the donkey man. Parfait. Anyway, sorry. No, back on topic. Oh my God, I can't believe I did that. In any event, John Shire's peeling back different levels of his coaching ability, and I'm seeing more and more to like as the season moves along. There are a lot of people out there who think this Duke team has really turned a corner. I'm not sure they ever, we're struggling to get around that corner in the first place. I guess they probably were, but it feels like the arrow's pointed up on the Blue Devils right now. That's for sure.
Yeah, like we've said all year, everyone on this team, on this particular team, and look, going all the way back to the 42 years of Coach K would say, I'm not worried about what we've done in the past. I'm just worried about this team, right? And what they're doing. We are 1-0 with this team. We're 1-0 this week with this team. John Shire and this team are all freshmen, right? Like, if you think about it, everyone on the team is a freshman. The only people who aren't are Jalen Blakes and Jeremy Roach. They're the only two guys who are returning in the roles that but even them, they have different roles this year than they did last year. So in that regard, they are also freshmen. So everyone in this team is learning together, and no one really has it. And look, everyone in their first year of doing something was terrible at it. They may have thought they were sweet, but when you look back over the years, you go, my first year was the worst year that I ever had. And John Shire and this coaching staff is learning on the job every single day. And I thought they had a really great week of preparation for a Notre Dame team that was, again, one of the bottom teams in the ACC, but still had the caliber of players to beat you.
By the way, they almost beat Virginia.
And they almost beat Virginia, right? Like, so this team isn't
Notre Dame's week was, we almost beat Duke and we almost beat Virginia.
They probably lost twice and went up in KenPom by like 20 points, like that sort of thing. And then the follow up with Syracuse is one of the most difficult teams to prepare for, because that matchup zone is, everyone knows it's coming and you still can't really stop it all the time. So that is a really difficult week to plan for, and I thought they did it very, very well. So hats off to this coaching staff, and may they continue to grow over the season as our players do.
By the way, you're exactly right. Notre Dame went from 184 to 170.
See what I'm saying?
In KenPom.
And they lost twice.
They lost at Duke and they lost at Virginia, and they went up 14 points in KenPom. Yeah. All right, that's going to wrap it up for us here on episode 490 of the Duke Basketball Report podcast. Donald Wine, thank you for joining me. I am Jason Evans. We miss you, Sam. Have fun skiing in Vermont. That's where Sam is right now. I think Sam had a better morning than we did. What do you think, man?
Hey, I got hot chicken, so I'm feeling
you're
okay.
Doing well. You're doing well. I love it. All right. As we mentioned, check your feed, because Donald and Sam, I can't be with them, but Donald and Sam are going to be bringing you some DBR bites, previewing this game against Louisville as the Blue Devils begin a key 3-game homestand as we get ready to wrap up the ACC schedule and move on to the postseason. For Donald, for Sam, I'm Jason, and this is the Duke Band to play us out and take us home. I just watched Jericho Sims do a fairly routine dunk and then pull out that little piece of paper that had 50 written on it.
Oh no, that like again, I have thoughts on all these things because I watched it from the bar last night.
That's bad, man.
First off, all of them, like everyone was hyping up Mac McClung, and I'm like, yo, I'm here at the bar. We're watching on the iPad, no sound, and I'm predicting every dunk every single time. Because I'm like, I've seen all these before. The only one that I was like, okay, that's good was the last one. And I was like, guys, I already know they're calling out a 540. The very last dunk of the
it wasn't 540. You know, that was a 540.
Right. But if you notice,
and that's crazy.
If you notice, he does a trick. Zion has done that exact same thing before, where you start your 360 before you jump.
Right.
So when you jump, you only have to do 360. And then it turns into a 540. Because Zion's the Zion windmill, the 360 dunk against Clemson, that was actually a 540 from where he turned. We just call it a 360 because we're smart. And we knew if we called it a 540, people would be like, oh no, absolutely not.
Yo,
also, when you've seen someone do a 720, it like 540s don't mean much anymore.
McClung was awesome, man.
Call me hater.
It still looked like a 540. I thought that looked pretty damn good, man.
I thought that was the best dunk of the night, but it was I was like, yeah, he's already won because at that point he was doing dunks that I like, yo, we see these all the time.